Israel's military has launched a fresh offensive in Gaza, including extensive airstrikes on the territory. The Hamas-run health ministry says at least 146 people were killed over 24 hours. Israel's army released this footage purporting to show strikes on Hamas military sites. It says this latest assault is aimed at freeing the remaining hostages and dismantling the militant group which carried out the October 7 terror attacks. The situation in Gaza dominated a summit of the Arab League in Baghdad, Iraq. UN Chief Antonio Guterres said only a two-state solution can deliver lasting peace to the region.
Nothing justifies the collective punishment of the Palestinian people. We need a permanent ceasefire now. The unconditional release of all hostages now. And the free flow of humanitarian aid, ending the blockade now. I am alarmed by reported plans by Israel to expand ground operations and more. And I emphasize that the United Nations will not participate in any so-called aid operation that does not adhere to international law and humanitarian principles of humanity, impartiality, independence and neutrality. And I reiterate my appeal for the urgent and full support of UNRWA's work, including financial support.
On the aspect of humanitarian needs, I spoke to Rachael Cummings from Save the Children. She's in Deir al-Balah in central Gaza. I asked her what she's witnessing as Israel mounts its new offensive.
You know, the last 48, 72 hours has seen a dramatic increase in the number of bombardments and evacuations issued to populations who are in desperate need. We can hear jets, we hear the bombs and the artillery east of Deir al-Balah where we are, and understand that the massive onslaught in North Gaza and the east of Khan Yunis as well is ongoing.
If you can hear what's going on, how close do you actually get to the fighting? What's it like working in a war zone trying to help these people?
It's extraordinarily challenging. It's extremely unpredictable. And of course, we need to be able to provide a degree of security and safety for our teams who are out working in communities, treating and supporting children and their families. So it's becoming increasingly challenging to be able to provide life-saving services for children, including child protection and mental health care.
Apart from fleeing the fighting, the other struggle for civilians to stay alive is getting food and water. How bad has it got under this more than 2-month-old Israeli blockade of aid?
It's incredible. The whole of Gaza, the total population is at critical risk of famine. There has been no food or any other humanitarian or commercial supplies that have entered Gaza since the 2nd of March. The warehouses are empty. The community kitchens are having to close down now because they're unable to provide the essential food that people are desperately in need of. Coping mechanisms are extreme. Parents have told us and mothers have told us that they're having to bulk out their meals for their children with grass, with animal fodder, and they're only getting one meal a day. The situation is absolutely desperate.
What's the situation like for you personally? How many meals do you get a day?
You know, we're very fortunate. We've had the period of the ceasefire between January and March. We were able to stockpile some food in our office and our guest house. So we're very fortunate. But of course, the vast majority of people in Gaza are having to ration their food because they don't know when the next meal is coming.
Desperate time. I mean, hundreds of people are not only dying, but also being injured on a daily basis. What do you make, though, of Israel's claims that Hamas militants are stealing the aid? That's their reasoning behind the blockade.
Yeah, humanitarian actors like Save the Children, across the whole humanitarian community, we have very robust measures in place to assure the distribution of our aid goes to people in need. We have accountability mechanisms. We have monitoring mechanisms. We've been doing this for 18 months. We have a long history of working in Gaza and working in communities for over decades. So we need to be allowed to do our job, to be able to distribute essential supplies to populations and to provide life-saving essential services to children in Gaza.
Have you ever come across your supplies, your boxed aid being resold or sold at markets or by Hamas?
So the children hasn't been involved in massive food distributions, but of course we have had some incidents of our trucks being stopped and some items being taken off them. But this is driven most recently by absolute desperation of the population. It's a very, very complex environment to be operating in. We have done massive distributions of other items successfully with very positive feedback from communities. And I said, with community members and Save the Children staff doing very close monitoring and reporting against those items.
One other thing I wanted to ask you was this new US-backed aid organisation called the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. It says it'll take care of aid distribution to Gaza before the end of the month. We heard Secretary General Antonio Guterres there saying the UN would not take part. What do you make of this proposal, which apparently has Israel's backing?
The UN and humanitarian actors in Gaza stand united in rejecting this model of distribution of food. The details are not well understood. However, what we see is not adhering to the humanitarian principles, impartiality, neutrality, to be able to provide assistance and alleviate suffering to all people in need in Gaza. And as I said, Save the Children and the humanitarian community in Gaza, we know how to support the people of Gaza. We know how to provide humanitarian assistance. We definitely just need to be able to do our jobs here.
Rachael Cummings from Save the Children there with a very important message from Deir al-Balah in central Gaza. Thank you.
Thanks.